One of the most uncomfortable trophy ceremonies in tennis history unfolded at the French Open. Coco Gauff openly ignored Aryna Sabalenka during the celebration, and the reason behind it sparked major debate throughout the tennis world. What Aryna said in her post-match interview upset Coco so deeply that she chose silence as her response. The tension was obvious, the snub was deliberate, and Aryna ended up becoming a source of awkward laughter among viewers. So here's a question for you. If someone downplays your win by claiming they lost the match themselves, is ignoring them the right reaction, or is it better to confront them directly? Share your thoughts below. Coco Gauff had just won the French Open with a commanding performance, and her excitement was completely understandable. She celebrated with so much enthusiasm that she accidentally dropped the lid of the trophy onto the court. That moment captured pure joy. It was raw, unfiltered happiness from someone who had just reached a lifelong goal. But when it came time to accept the trophy during the official ceremony, something changed. Coco's demeanor shifted. She looked more reserved, more guarded, and most noticeably, she completely ignored Aryna Sabalenka. This wasn't a subtle moment or a quick glance missed. It was a clear and intentional public dismissal that everyone watching could see. Almost immediately, people across the tennis world began asking why Coco would treat the runner-up that way during a moment that is usually defined by respect and sportsmanship. The answer lies in Aryna's post-match interview, and honestly, what she said was extremely hard to justify if you're Coco Gauff. Aryna suggested that Coco didn't win because she played better, but because Aryna made too many mistakes. In other words, she framed the match as something she lost rather than something Coco earned. For someone who had just won a Grand Slam final, that kind of statement is about as dismissive as it gets.
How does she do that and make things difficult for you?
By running and playing those high balls from the frame. And honestly, sometimes it felt like she was hitting the ball from the frame. Somehow, magically, the ball lands in the court, and you kind of like on the back foot, and yeah, it's just like it felt like a joke. Honestly, like someone from above was just like staying there laughing and like, oh, let's see if you can handle this, And I couldn't today, and she won the match not because she played incredible, just because I made all of those mistakes.
Aryna stated that her own errors were the reason Coco won the match. Read that carefully. Her mistakes made Coco win. Not Coco's skill, not her tactics, not her execution under pressure. Just Aryna defeating herself. That was the storyline Aryna pushed immediately after the loss.
Another tough final on the Grand Slam against Coco, another terrible performance from me against Coco in the final, and yeah, I have to just kind of like step back and look at this from the perspective and try to finally learn the lesson, because I cannot go out there every time against her in the finals of the Grand Slam and play such terrible tennis and give those wins. She literally just put an extra ball on the other side than I did, so. Like, it was a joke for real. Like, when she would hit the ball, at some point the wind would just like let the ball fly like crazy, and I was late every time, plus clay court, plus like a bit of wrong bounces, and I was like, honestly guys, it's the worst match I played in the last couple months. It's just a joke, and I cannot do that anymore.
But it didn't stop there. Aryna also claimed that if Iga Swiatek had beaten her in the semifinals, then Iga would have gone on to defeat Coco in the final. So now, not only was she saying she beat herself, but she was also suggesting that Coco wouldn't have won if a different opponent had made the final. Essentially, Aryna implied that Coco's French Open title had less to do with Coco's greatness and more to do with circumstances breaking her way.
I don't know. I think if Iga would win me another day, I think she would go out today and she would get the win. It just, like, yeah.
I don't agree with that. I'm here sitting here, and last time I played, no, like to Iga or anything, but I played her and I won in straight sets. So, but yeah, I think regardless of who I played, I think I had a good shot to win, and I definitely had that belief. And if you ask me, like, honestly speaking to you guys, who I wanted to play was Iga, just because I felt Aryna was playing so good, and she was. So, but also Iga is a tough opponent too. So honestly, neither of them would have been a better shot, but it played out how it played out, and yeah, that's why I'm here today.
That's a shocking take from someone coming off a Grand Slam final loss. And Coco clearly recognized that Aryna was refusing to acknowledge her level of play or give her proper credit. So Coco made a choice. Instead of engaging, she decided not to interact with Aryna at all and let the awkwardness speak for itself. And it worked. The moment became painfully uncomfortable for Aryna. She stood there during the ceremony, likely expecting the usual polite exchanges between finalists, while Coco completely acted as if she wasn't there. That silence carried weight. It sent a strong message, without Coco having to say a single word. Later on, Coco did respond verbally to Aryna's comments. She stated clearly that she won the match because of her own strength, not because of Aryna's mistakes. At the same time, she called Aryna her toughest opponent. That was a smart and strategic response. It gave Aryna respect while also reinforcing that Coco beat her at her best, not because she fell apart. Ironically, calling Aryna her strongest opponent made Aryna's earlier comments look even worse. If she was the strongest opponent and still lost, then the conclusion is obvious. Coco was simply better when it mattered. At that point, the discussion isn't about mistakes, it's about superiority. The audience noticed all of this. Aryna's handling of the loss turned her into a bit of a laughingstock. Because losing gracefully is part of being a professional athlete. You're allowed to feel disappointed. You're allowed to be upset internally. But publicly, you acknowledge that your opponent played well and earned the win. That's basic sportsmanship taught early in every athlete's career. Coco chose a different approach. She minimized Coco's achievement by framing the match as something she gave away, rather than something Coco took. And that distinction matters deeply, especially to someone who just accomplished a lifelong dream. Coco Gauff is 21 years old and just won the French Open. That is a career-defining milestone. She's worked her entire life for that moment, for that trophy, for the validation that she belongs among the best in the world. And minutes after achieving it, the person she defeated told the media it wasn't really about Coco being great. It was about Aryna making mistakes. That would infuriate anyone. Of course Coco ignored her during the trophy ceremony. What else was she supposed to do? Smile politely? Pretend those comments didn't matter? Act thankful that Aryna allowed her to win? Absolutely not. The cold shoulder was an appropriate response to that level of disrespect. Let's also be clear about what actually happened on the court. Coco Gauff played outstanding tennis. She attacked when the moment called for it. She defended brilliantly under pressure. Her serve showed up when it mattered most. She executed her game plan with precision. That's what winning a Grand Slam final requires. Yes, Aryna made errors. Every tennis match includes errors from both players. That's the nature of the sport. But reducing Coco's victory to Aryna made mistakes is both inaccurate and insulting. Coco forced those mistakes with her shot selection, her pace, and her positioning. That's what high-level tennis looks like. Aryna's comment about Iga Swiatek potentially beating Coco if she had reached the final is pure speculation and completely irrelevant. Iga didn't make the final. Aryna did. Aryna had her opportunity to win the French Open, and she didn't capitalize on it. Bringing up hypotheticals only highlights her inability to perform when it mattered most. This isn't the first time we've seen poor sportsmanship from athletes after big losses. Some competitors simply can't accept that they were beaten by someone better on that day. Their ego won't allow it. So instead, they build narratives around mistakes, circumstances, or anything other than the truth.
The irony is that Aryna made things worse for herself. If she had simply credited Coco and acknowledged that Coco played better, the focus would have stayed on Coco's achievement.
Instead, Aryna created a secondary storyline centered on her lack of grace, and that story is now permanently attached to Coco's French Open victory. Fans will remember that trophy ceremony. They'll remember Coco standing tall while openly ignoring Aryna because of those comments. That moment is now part of Aryna's legacy at that tournament. Coco, on the other hand, handled everything perfectly. She didn't cause a scene, she didn't lash out publicly in the heat of the moment. She communicated her feelings through her actions, or more accurately, through her refusal to engage. When she finally addressed it verbally, she did so calmly, confidently, and with class. Calling Aryna her strongest opponent was especially clever. It flipped the narrative entirely. Instead of, "I beat myself," the story became, "Coco defeated the best possible opponent." One version diminishes the champion, the other elevates her. Coco made sure the right version prevailed. This situation also highlights a broader issue in women's tennis today. The level of talent at the top is incredible and competition is fierce, but respect still matters. You can battle intensely on the court and still acknowledge your opponent's ability afterward. Aryna's comments suggested a lack of respect for Coco's game, which is strange considering Coco just beat her in a Grand Slam final. If you don't respect someone's game, don't lose to them. But if you do lose, then clearly they had something you couldn't handle that day. The French Open is one of the most prestigious tournaments in the sport. Winning it isn't luck, it isn't a fluke. It requires sustained excellence over 2 weeks against the best players in the world. Coco did exactly that. She earned that title. For Aryna to diminish that accomplishment shows poor judgment and a lack of perspective. Coco's response, ignoring her during the ceremony, made it clear she wasn't willing to accept that behavior. Most of the tennis community sided with Coco. Players, commentators, and fans agreed that Aryna's comments crossed a line and that Coco's reaction was justified. No one expects players to be close friends, but basic respect is non-negotiable, and Aryna failed to meet that standard. This incident will likely affect their future encounters. There's now visible tension between them that didn't exist before. Coco knows Aryna doesn't fully respect her game. Aryna knows Coco publicly dismissed her because of it. That adds another layer to their rivalry. And it is a rivalry now. They're both elite players who will meet again in major tournaments. The stakes are higher, the emotions are stronger, and every interaction will be closely watched. That makes for compelling tennis, but it also means Aryna may one day regret how she handled this moment. Or she may double down and continue insisting she beat herself. Either way, the damage is done. She's now remembered as the player who struggled to accept defeat gracefully. Coco, meanwhile, comes out looking confident, mature, and composed. She let her game speak during the match, her actions speak during the ceremony, and her words speak afterward. That's championship-level maturity paired with championship-level tennis. The dropped trophy lid at the beginning of the ceremony symbolized the pure joy Coco felt. That's what this moment should have been about, celebrating an extraordinary achievement. Instead, Aryna's comments introduced unnecessary drama that overshadowed what should have been a purely positive occasion. Aryna Sabalenka tried to downplay Coco Gauff's French Open victory by saying she beat herself. Coco responded by completely ignoring her during the trophy ceremony. The silence was intentional, the message was unmistakable, and Aryna became a laughingstock because of her own poor sportsmanship. If you think Coco handled this perfectly, or if you disagree, hit that like button and subscribe for more tennis drama breakdowns, because when disrespect gets shut down publicly, that's a moment worth watching.